Welcome back to KISH YZ, kicking it in the second half. We're back again. This is episode 14 of our podcast called Elite Duos. Yep, I had to double check, my bad. This is a combination of basically guard to big. That's what we're considering here. None of that really Chris Paul. No, my bad. Scratch out. I'm thinking the wrong team. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Let's get into it. So I'm rambling enough. Hugh, you back over there again? You awake, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Show the people what you're working with.
Yeah, so I just got a list of some of the elite duos that you just
No, I'm
touched on.
not done the introduction. I'm D. That's my co-host Hugh.
Oh, my bad.
Group with some fresh kicks on. Look at that. They're clean, man. Icy souls. Hugh, what's been going on with you today, buddy?
Just chilling, killing.
Uh-oh. I'm gonna pretend like I didn't hear that. So yeah, like I said, this is the guard big combination. Hugh, I want to ask the first question. I want to make a statement. The statement is, this seems to be the way of success in the modern league as of right now. But, go ahead and give the people some examples of what we're talking about. For the casual listener, shout out to Jeff. Tell these people, give them some examples of teams and their players right now.
Yeah, so I just have some examples written down. I got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid with the 76ers.
Okay.
I got Malcolm Brogdon and Sabonis with the Pacers.
Okay.
I have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert with the Utah Jazz. Okay. I have Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton with the Phoenix Suns. I have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
Hey, shout out to Jamal Murray, your second favorite best player in the world.
I got Luka and Porzingis with the Mavs.
What?
Oh my gosh. I got Ja and Valanciunas with Memphis.
I'll give you that one.
That's all I want to get into. All I want to get into.
No, you got some more. Go in.
Well, I have a couple more, but it obviously ain't working.
Go in. Let's see. This is your perspective. I want to hear it. Everybody wants to hear it.
one that I wrote down that it's I think it has potential, but it's too
just throw it out there. The listeners want to hear this.
Yeah, it's too new to be proven. It's not proven yet, but I think Zach LaVine and Vucevic have a chance.
That's interesting.
I think they could go well together.
You're jumping in something I'll probably talk about later, so I like that. That's good. What else you got?
Excuse me.
You got some more.
Okay, I got a couple more that I think they kind of tried to do this formula, but it ain't really working. That is
how do we know?
Rockets.
I said this seems to be the way of success. Show me some success.
The Rockets and John Wall.
This is not going good. The Rockets. Oh my gosh.
And the Timberwolves.
What about the Rockets?
D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns.
Start over. What about the Rockets? Say it, please. What's the duo?
John Wall and Christian Wood. Okay, and then the Timberwolves. You got D'Angelo Russell healthy and Karl Anthony Towns healthy. You all right over there, D?
No.
Need an intermission?
No. I want this on tape. It's natural emotion. I wasn't expecting all this. Success. What else?
That's about all I got with this end.
You sure you don't?
I got one more. I got Trae Young with Capella and John Collins.
Okay. You don't have any.
You're crying over there, D. You need to gather your composure.
I need some drops. You sure you don't have Josh Jackson and Mason Plumlee?
I actually have Steph Curry and James Wiseman. I'm just joking. I don't have them. De'Aaron Fox and Hassan Whiteside. Yeah. I mean, what did I'm just joking on that one. I didn't even have that one written down, but I mean, I got
Get through it. I can't.
I mean, yeah, I could.
Were you
I
just
got
going through the league and looking at players that this guy plays for this team, he's a point guard, and this one's a center?
Bro, John Wall and Christian Wood are above average. It's just not working for Houston. D'Angelo Russell
Success.
and Karl Anthony
It
Towns
doesn't
healthy
matter
are
about the
above average.
numbers. You're too much of a stat guy. It's success. Where are they at in the standings? They're not winning.
All right, then scratch everybody I said and put freaking Murray and Jokic and put Booker and Ayton and Mitchell and Gobert and Ja and Valanciunas and Sabonis and Brogdon and Simmons and Embiid and Trey, Capella and Collins.
Oh,
scratch the Mavs, scratch the Rockets and the Timberwolves.
The Mavs are
scratch the Bulls.
In there. Ooh, that's a lot to take in, Hugh. I'm glad you kind of reevaluated and took a step back and looked at your list and figured out where you went wrong.
I don't think I went. Okay, yeah. You got anybody else to add on there?
Part clear. I mean, those are great examples of successful teams and not so successful teams. But you had the concept right as far as linking the two. Some of those are working and some of those aren't working because they need to be changed. So feel free to bring up any of those that you want me to go over, or why I think they're not and you thought they did.
Houston.
Well, Houston, I mean, you touched on the numbers portion of Christian Wood. I definitely like Christian Wood. I think he's a guy that, if we're doing a PPF on him as well in the future, he is a guy that will be an all-star. If he stays healthy, he's just one of those guys that's under the radar and popped out of nowhere if you're not familiar with Christian Wood at all. If you never heard the name and you're just like, who is Christian Wood and who's watching the Rockets? That is a guy that I would say guarantee would be an all-star. John Wall, on the other hand, we know the background and the backstory of John Wall, but right now there's problems in Houston. The cliche, Houston, we have problems. They have problems. They have a lot of problems because of what they just did in the trade with the trade deadline. The rest of the Harden assets you mentioned, they're basically gone now. So they have problems. Nobody's going to really want the John Wall contract. Maybe he's a free agent this year. I can't remember. But that's probably somebody they're going to move on from. But I don't know if they have the opportunity to do that, to be honest, because they don't have very many draft picks. But Christian Wood is a guy, and maybe that's what we need to talk about. Maybe he needs to be traded. Well, he's not going to be traded, but maybe he should be paired with somebody else if they could trade John Wall. Then that would make the beginning of an awesome duo.
What's your take on
Oh no, we don't have time for that.
Sorry, over. Jim wore me out. What's your take on the Bulls with the potential for Levine and Vucevic?
Yeah, definitely potential there. I mean, I think I had them somewhere on the list. Might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I was going to get into that in a further topic down the line. But yeah, definitely Zach LaVine and Vucevic does have the potential. I mean, both of those are an all-star this year. So 2 all-stars, what can go wrong? Lots of things, but in my opinion, that is something that you're wanting. And when we get to there, it'll make sense. But yeah, that's a good example, but not a great example because we don't know the success of those guys. Can it work? Sure. Will it work? It can. Has it worked? I don't know. It's been 2 games in, and Zach LaVine hasn't been healthy. If you're keeping up with the current times, he's playing games, but he's not fully up to par after a small minor ankle injury. I think he rolled his ankle or something. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, can I ask you something, D?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't think I can laugh anymore, though.
That's good. with you talked about this guard and big man tandem. What do you think? What do you think makes that work in today's NBA? Why do you think that's so successful?
I think that's so successful because if you're looking at, let's just look at the standard model of who won last. That would be what, the defending champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. And what I mean by that is LeBron and AD. And I know a lot of times people were thinking like LeBron, he's a big guy. He's a big guy that can pass. True. But last year, he primarily played point guard and he led the league in assists like a point guard normally would. So that's who made it last year all the way. LeBron and AD, inside, outside game. And I mean, they're both very dynamic players. So, even if they weren't listed at those respective positions, that talent alone would do a lot. But you look at a team that hasn't been that successful with that, as far as in terms in the short sample of last season, Kawhi and PG, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, that we weren't really focused on those type of duos. But at the same time, this is an example of why we're not focused on those type of duos for this podcast, is because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, it just didn't work. When you look at the team, what's the first thing you think of that they're missing, Hugh?
The Clippers?
Yeah.
Big man.
Big man. You said it best. They still don't have that big man. Like the big man, in my opinion, solidifies the concept of the in and out. Yeah, could they use a point guard? Sure, but the big man is the main issue there, because Paul George can bring the ball down at times, and you could get away with a decent point guard. They picked up Rondo, so there you go. But if you're still looking at them after picking up Rondo, you still say what, Hugh?
Big man.
Big man.
I like Serge Ibaka, but he just doesn't fit that mold for me.
He's not elite. We're talking about elite duos and or trios, but an elite big guy. Serge Ibaka is not an elite big guy. But you look at other elite big guys. You touched on Denver Nuggets. That's an obvious. How about the Utah Jazz? Did you mention the Jazz?
I did.
So looking at the Jazz, what do they have there? They have what? Donovan Mitchell and who?
Mr. Gobert.
Mr. Gobert, the Stifle Tower, an elite big guy, a defensive player of the year. So when you throw that combination in, where's that getting them this year? Of course, they have other things in the aspect of their team as far as what they have built around there, but where are they?
They're first.
Man, you need to get in a little bit faster there, Hubert.
Hey, they're first. They're first in the whole NBA. My bad.
There you go. That's what I want to hear. They're first in the
Best
NBA.
record. Best record.
You see that? You see where that's getting them? All right, go to the East. Who's got the best record in the East? If this works out in my favor.
The Philadelphia 76ers.
And what do they have, Hugh? Go.
An elite point guard and big man.
What are their names? Again.
Mr. Simmons and Mr. Embiid.
There you go. Is that working for them? So far it is.
Seems to be.
It seems to be. I mean, yeah, Embiid is hurt. Hopefully he comes back and he'll be healthy, but it just works. And another example of that, who made it to the finals last year against the Lakers?
The Miami Heat.
Miami Heat. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's Jimmy Butler, who can play the small forward, but most of the time, playing the shooting guard. So either or, but you got another guy with another elite big and Bam Adebayo, another guy who's an all-star. So that puts him at an elite level among the league as far as big guys. So you look at that. That's what made it. Excuse me. That's what made it out of the East last year. And you're talking about a team that went through the Bucks. And what are the Bucks missing when we're talking about this conversation?
The big man.
What kind of big man?
The center.
What kind of center?
What do you mean, what kind?
Elite.
Oh,
they have
yeah.
Brook Lopez. He can knock down threes.
Well,
but
yeah, he's not elite.
He's not elite, exactly. And maybe that's the thing we're missing here. Like I said, the Heat are the ones that made it through. If you put Giannis down low all the time, sure, maybe that changes the dynamic. But they're missing that elite big guy. You see the pattern here. I'm not saying that this pattern can't be broken, but you see where I'm going with this.
Absolutely. It makes perfect
Does
sense.
this answer your question as far as how does this work so well? We just have examples of why it's working and still working.
Yeah.
So, which that gets me into my question, which I have for you, if you want to speak on this. Which teams failed at achieving this season versus the teams that implemented the strategy? So, I've already mentioned the teams that are doing well. What do you see? Is there another team that you see that tried to do the strategy but is not doing it well, or they're not doing it at all?
Well, the Rockets and Timberwolves are two teams I could touch on that try to do it and aren't getting it done.
Aren't getting it done. Okay, is there another team that failed? Because I have a team on my list.
That tried to do it and failed?
Yes.
Who do you have?
For one example, not as big of a deal is the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, I think it was this offseason, they signed Aaron Baines. What was that? I don't even know. They have Chris Boucher there, and I think they give that guy a little bit more run time, and he puts up great numbers. He's just on a slender frame, so he's not that stocky big that you would see in the traditional sense. But, Aaron Baines, he's not the elite that you need. And now the team is unraveling, maybe, in my opinion, because of that, because you have Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, and you also had Norman Powell. So the big guy cost them, in my opinion. That just settles the debate there. And then another team that failed. We've talked about this in earlier podcasts. Can you guess?
Sacramento.
Well, yeah, Sacramento. I did have that, which we just mentioned that earlier. They failed because they have De'Aaron Fox, and they thought Marvin Bagley was going to be the guy, but just the injuries. I like to see him healthy, and maybe that narrative would change. And then you look at Hassan Whiteside. There's just, he's not working for that system. So they're out of options there when it comes to bigs. And they also have another elite guard coming up as in Tyrese Halliburton. So,
Kyle Guy.
they're missing that big. They need to get that big in there. If they want a chance of pushing past where they've been in the last couple of seasons and break into the playoffs, they need that big, bro.
What's that team you had then? That wasn't the team. That wasn't the team you had to talk about, was it?
Team I had, we talked about at the trade deadline. You want to take another crack at it. Eastern Conference. They messed it up. They botched it.
Yes. Oh, definitely. You gave it away there. That team that plays in the Boston?
Boston. Yeah, the Celtics. They completely messed up the strategy. That's why we talk about they needed the big. They needed to pursue Vucevic. He was available. Even, they took the risk, I guess, maybe assuming one of the bigs from the buyout market was going to come there. I wouldn't have played that game, especially with the headlines, what you were hearing that they were potentially looking at other teams. But I would have just pursued Vucevic hard and gave up picks and assets to solidify that and bring him over. In that scenario, I'm sure they could have traded something to make that work. But instead, they actually got rid of one of their other bigs who wasn't elite. But when you put that in there, the Celtics can only make it so far. Because usually with elite bigs, it's not only the offense we're looking at, it's the defense of other bigs. Who's defending these other elite bigs for the Boston Celtics right now?
Yeah, they're struggling.
And they're going to keep struggling. Unfortunately, they're going to keep struggling.
What about Charlotte?
What about Charlotte?
They don't have an elite big.
They don't have an elite big, which is very surprising. Charlotte's like one of those outliers, but then again, they do play in the East. They're going to try to outscore you with their guard situations. Back when LaMelo Ball was, still playing before his injury, they're running like a 3-guard rotation between Rozier, Ball, and Devontae Graham. So there
Do you think that could be successful?
I mean, it's successful enough where they're in the playoff runnings in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if that's enough to sustain winning the first round. In my opinion, I don't think that will be.
Understandable.
And then this is also the reason, we talked about in the last podcast, I mentioned how Porzingis kind of fell off for me as far as one of those elite bigs. And without that status, this is kind of why the Mavs won't make it as far, in my opinion, as as they should. They're climbing up into the standings in the West, but this could be the difference between them being in the conference finals and getting out the first round. Like, yeah, it's very well possible they can get out the first round with Luka Doncic, kind of like how we saw James Harden do time after time. But after the first round, it's hard, man. They need an elite big.
Understandable.
Anything else you want to ask me about that?
Yeah, we saw we touched on this guy a little bit earlier, but we saw Nurkic miss all that time, but the Blazers were still successful. What's your take on that?
So that was going to get into my next topic, where I was going to talk about alternative solutions to this, counter, as far as like, if you don't have an elite big, what are other things you could do? I.e., not going too far back, when you started watching basketball, the Golden State Warriors, where they necessarily didn't have that elite big, but they had 3-4 all-stars. And you look at Brooklyn this year, who doesn't have a big. So if you want to talk about that, you can. And then, like we just talked about, the Bucks as well. So those are just kind of some exceptions as far as the teams. But yeah, on a side note, I did have the Portland Trailblazers when they're healthy, because they do have Dame and McCollum, and now they have Norman Powell with scoring. So their guard situation is great. And Nurkic can be a borderline all-star player when he's healthy. So, not what I would consider elite big right now, but with all of that combined, that could be an exception. You have enough to make a playoff push and, get a little bit deep into the playoffs, like I said, if everybody stays healthy. And then another team, which you had mentioned earlier as one of the duos, Phoenix Suns. You talked about Booker and Ayton. I want to also obviously add Chris Paul into that. So now you have a 2-guard, 1 big combination where, Booker is definitely the elite superstar. Chris Paul is like a former superstar type of guy, but he's definitely an all-star caliber player. And then Ayton, who can play at an all-star level, that's still developing into becoming an elite big. So another exception that works for this year. And then if they stay together next year, it should be even better. I was going to ask you a question if you thought the Bucks were a good exception in your opinion. Like I said, I think they can be. Do you think they're a great example of an exception, or you might see something similar this year in the playoffs that happened last year?
I mean, they're having a lot of success, obviously. I could see there being an exception, but I think, like you touched on earlier, not having that elite center, I think it could come down to haunting playing in the East. You're going to have to face Embiid probably, or and LaMarcus Aldridge, DeAndre Jordan, Brooklyn Nets now. I think they can still make it pretty far, but I just think that's going to be their Achilles heel right there, is not having that elite big man like you talked about.
Now, interesting thing they did do was they traded for the guy from the Rockets, PJ Tucker, who we know a few years ago, he was playing the center position, like definitely undersized.
Good luck.
So he has experience playing against bigs as far as defense, but he's not a center. I don't know what they were doing there. That was a complete experiment. I don't know if that was the mindset of the Bucks as well, as like, hey, we have a backup defensive center. I mean, what do you think about that, Hugh?
Let's see how far it gets them.
That's right. Let's just see how far it gets them. And then also, what about overpowered versions of the elite duos? You have any ideas about that? Like a big 3?
Yeah. I got the Nuggets marked for that with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic.
That's a big one right there, because like you touched on earlier, the duo of Murray and Jokic, as far as that elite duo, I could see Jamal Murray becoming an all-star in the league, and Jokic, who is already an all-star and superstar. Sorry. Yeah, and Aaron Gordon, he's been balling since he got there. So yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see. So This is an OP version of that standard of guard and center, which makes for a great playoff push, in my opinion. You're loading up here.
Yeah.
You have any more
Yeah.
examples?
Yeah. I got two more. I wrote down the Suns with Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, like you have already touched on. And the other one I wrote down is I wrote down Utah, but I just wrote down Donovan Mitchell and Gobert, and then I wrote down this guy. It might not make sense because he comes off the bench, but Jordan Clarkson. I think he's
No,
playing amazing this
it does make sense. So let me help you explain that. It's because he leads the bench and he looks like the potential winner for Sixth Man of the Year. So when you consider that alternative / OP version of this concept, you got the duo with Mitchell and Gobert, but then the bench itself, led by Jordan Clarkson, makes it like another dynamic to the team, almost like having a big three, except for your third person is your bench. If you, especially you have Joe Ingles coming off the bench as well, you have that depth there, that it gives you another player on the court in a way where if Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are both sitting, the game is still under control in a flow of sense where, this still works as a key cog to the team. So yeah, another great example of the OP / alternative version of this. Are there any duos or trios on the rise that you could think of?
I wrote a couple.
What
Well,
you got?
again, I got the people that I'd already named at the beginning, but I have the Brogdon Sabonis duo. We've already talked about them enough. Just both of them played, their best year this year, and I think they're just continue to rise if Brogdon stays there. I know we talked about that a little bit, but if he stays, yeah, I see that duo getting better. Another one I have getting better is the Atlanta trio I touched on with Trae Young, Clint Capella, and John Collins. We talked about John Collins. He's extremely young, and we love him. We love him on that team and what he brings to it. Capella, I think he fits in great with that team. He just crashes the boards nonstop. He's a monster, and then we all know what Trae Young's capable of. So I think that's a trio that could continue to rise. We saw what they've done since after the All-Star break. So yeah, I could just see those two teams, their duos and trios respectively, continuing to get better.
Yeah, definitely teams that look like they're on the right track, not looking like the Sacramento Kings or whatnot. Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see them develop. Once again, shout out to the Timberwolves. I just don't know what to think there. I just think that a trade needs to be involved where they just start over, and they were hoping for the best, but these injuries are counting what they can do, or they could be one that's on the rise. But I don't know. Maybe if the injuries don't follow them into the off season this year, maybe next year they could start developing into that. But it's going to be interesting to see how everybody meshes. When Malik Beasley returns and D'Angelo Russell returns, and of course you have the Ant-Man and Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. So yeah, could be an exception, could be on the rise, but I think maybe that's just part of the organization problem as far as management and trying to manage these guys on the court and keep them, I guess, gelled together in a way. But yeah, Hugh, anything else you want to add for this episode of the duos?
Nah,
I want to ask
nah.
a
I think
listener
I
something.
at some point, I think a cool concept with doing this would be like our top backcourts in the league. Like I think doing that kind of concept, like we talked about now, like guard and big man. What about like backcourt, best backcourts and stuff? I would like to do something like that maybe sometime.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do that. Like I said, the reason for doing this was obviously the follow up to episode 13. If you haven't watched that, make sure you check out episode 13. But it just because, like I said, I see this as more of a winning formula. I think the backcourt thing worked very well in the 2010s. But like I said, I feel like the big man's making a return back into the league. We saw earlier in the season all the big men that were like within that top 5 of MVP candidacy. Like I said, Jokic, Embiid. I guess they were the primary two. If you want to consider Giannis a big man, it's just something that you need nowadays. They're the whole unicorn of the league as far as that position specifically, because there's a lot, in my opinion, of elite guards or potential elite guards, but to have an elite big is kind of something that every team is needing and should be wanting. Like you said, we look at teams that we just mentioned, the Clippers on the West and the Celtics on the East, two franchises that look like they can do very well, but they're missing that big, and that's going to hold them back.
Makes sense.
I would like to ask the listeners and you the same question. You think we make an elite duo?
Me and you?
You and I?
Yeah. Yeah. I think anybody that knows us personally would agree.
I'm going to disagree there. We're going to definitely, that would be a debate within itself.
We have
We have what?
We have our moments.
We do have our moments. I mean, more like you're like the Rudy Gobert to my Donovan Mitchell, like, coughing on everything like he did with the microphones, and me getting frustrated, and then we come back together. So.
Yeah, but yeah. On a normal day, we get along like half of it and argue the other half. So it's just how our relationship works.
Facts. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Keeping it here. I'm kicking in the second half with D and Hugh and Groot. And, shout out to your bud 36. Sometimes he's a special guest with us on Tuesday nights, but, he's busy streaming over there. Check him out if you're into watching gaming videos. Follow him on Twitch at your bud 36. Shout out to cousin Fred, who hasn't been over here in a while. I think he's living okay, everybody, in case y'all are wondering. But yeah, we'll be grateful to have him return to the show at some point and, get on here with us and discuss his opinions about stuff. Hugh, any shout outs you want to give, or any subscribers you want to shout out to, or people who should subscribe, or first time listeners? What you got going on over there, buddy? I think I lost them. Are you all right?
Shout out anyone who listens. I don't know if you can tell how many listeners or whatnot, but shout out anybody who just does. I feel like we talk about YouTube all the time and stuff. Shout out anybody who listens on Spotify or Pocket Cast or what's it, Google Podcast, and one other one in Anchor. Yeah. So shout out anybody that's listening to audio only. I know we focus a lot on the video, but yeah, shout out any of y'all.
That's a great shout out, because I don't think we've ever done that. So yeah, shout out to the podcast only listeners. I mean, as far as the audio only listeners for our podcast, definitely if you are an audio only listener, catch us on KISH, KISH space YZ on YouTube, because we have some other videos on there that we do not have the audio only version of. If you'd like to see what else we have going on our channel. But yeah, thanks again for everybody listening and hopefully enjoying these podcasts. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. If you love it, give us a thumbs up in a comment and tell us that you love it. And then yeah, if you really love it, just go ahead and subscribe, and then you can keep seeing more of us. Hugh, you got a plug? What you want to plug in? Tell the people what to do.
No, I ain't got to plug nothing in. I'm good on this end, brother. See, here he goes with that. Yeah, we appreciate all the support. Like the video, comment, subscribe.
And before I go, I have to do this, everybody. Just let you know, I'm going to tell you, your mom should be subscribed. Has she subscribed?
I feel like you know that answer.
All right, everybody. Until next time, peace and love.